Vrlo zadovoljan sam da budem ovde, da imam priliku da govorim o ovoj važnoj temi. I'm also going to switch to speaking in English so that I can be more precise, because this is a very important theme and I do want to make sure that it is covered in the way that it needs to be. I would like to start off, though, today by saying thank you to the organizers of this conference, to my fellow panelists, to everyone who's here, because I do think it's important to have these conversations. I think energy is a very complicated topic. It's one that has a very big impact on all of our countries. And so it's important for people to continue to think about the way that the world is changing and the way that the energy scene is changing with it. Last night, as I was looking over my notes that I had started preparing for today's speech, I was really struck by a realization that all of the various themes and topics and questions that have been laid out by the organizers of this conference are actually very tightly intertwined. And I don't think we always deal with them that way. I think we often talk about these things as separate topics. We talk about the price of heating. We talk about the energy independence of a country. We talk about the price of oil, filling our cars with gas, each individual topic, but not about how the whole thing comes together. And really, each of these topics works hand in glove with each other to come together and form what I think of as a larger energy landscape. And for that reason, I'd like to take a minute here while I'm speaking with all of you to look at the overall energy landscape, to look at what's good, what might be lacking, what's being done to change it, how the changes are being implemented, what the challenges are ahead, and then how all of that impacts the more practical questions that have been laid out. When looking at the overall energy landscape, I think it's worth remembering first that Serbia was praised by the energy community for being the first to adopt the third energy package. That was a very significant step, and I think one that is indeed praiseworthy. However, adoption is not enough, and implementation of the third package, as well as ongoing implementation of the second package, will be challenging in the future. I know the government's been working very diligently on these efforts, particularly with implementation of the energy law, and I really look forward to seeing the fruits of those labors soon. The reason I look forward to it is because implementing both the second and the third energy package will really help the government and the people of Serbia to build a more modern, efficient, and robust energy landscape. And that energy landscape will then serve the people of Serbia, but it will also be in line with European norms and standards. The transformation will also contribute to long-term price stability and security of supply. And those are two things that really come back to the sort of practical questions of how this affects people. The price of energy, the ability of people to afford the energy they need, the ability of people to heat their homes, those are all critical issues. Improving energy markets, conforming with the requirements of the energy community, reforming state-owned enterprises, those will all be key elements in addressing these concerns because they will set the stage for more stability within the sector. As an example, you probably all know that Serbia has pledged to increase its use of renewable energy to 27% of total consumption by the year 2020. As I said, you probably all know that, and I doubt it's a surprise to many people here. But I think it's a good example of how these reforms all are interrelated and come together to form part of the broader effort to improve the energy sector. By increasing the use of renewable energy, Serbia will also be increasing its energy diversity, thereby also increasing its energy security and the security of its citizens. Increased diversity also leads to stronger, more competitive, robust energy markets that ultimately will drive down prices and that will help the people of Serbia to have reliable access to stable and affordable energy. Increasing the use of renewables, of course, has other benefits, as we all know. Renewable energy sources reduce pollution, they contribute to healthier lives, and they reduce dependence on fossil fuels. They also reduce emissions of greenhouse gases, which is an essential part of the climate accord that was reached in Paris and that both of our countries, the United States and Serbia, have signed on to. Renewable energy, as well as new technologies related to carbon capture and sequestration, will be key components of how countries reach these goals and how they deal with their energy sectors moving forward. I congratulate Serbia for having joined the Carbon Sequestration Leadership Forum, and I know that Serbia has expressed an interest in using these technologies in domestic energy production. Given that lignite coal is one of the primary sources of energy in Serbia, this will be very important. And carbon capture and sequestration will play an important role in allowing the country to continue to use its own natural resources in the future while simultaneously living up to its climate and EU commitments. I also know that several US companies are looking to invest in Serbia or to partner with the government to bring green energy technologies here, like wind farms and carbon capture. These are the kind of partnerships that bring benefits to both countries. The United States' experience in prioritizing green energy programs, which we've been doing for several years now, has shown that these efforts bring real progress. We've seen that over the long run, it's possible to deliver renewable energy at affordable and stable prices, while simultaneously creating thousands of good, permanent jobs. For example, in the United States in 2013 alone, approximately 80,000 jobs were created in the renewable and clean energy sectors. I look forward to seeing similar progress here in Serbia in the future. That may have seemed like a little bit of a tangent, and of course, increasing the use of renewable energy will contribute to a more diversified energy markets in Serbia. That's how it ties back into our earlier topic, but it won't be enough. The World Energy Council rated Serbia, or gave Serbia a D ranking when it comes to energy security, and I think that's a striking commentary about the lack of energy diversity and the problems it causes. With 80% of gas imports coming from one supplier through one route, it's no wonder that the energy community referred to Serbia, to the natural gas sector as Serbia's Achilles heel. This is an issue that the government and energy operators of Serbia need to take seriously and need to address. Reliance on a single source of energy means that any disruption to that source, whether it is a natural disaster, a crisis, or a political decision, will cripple the energy sector. Similarly, using a single transportation route means that there is a single point of failure that can affect the entire network. Of course, storage like that's being done at Banatski Dvor can help mitigate disruptions to some degree, but storage is not a lasting solution to Serbia's energy security. At best, it's a stopgap. The only true solution is to invest in projects that will allow for the diversity of both suppliers and routes. The Serbia-Bulgaria interconnector is an excellent example of the project that provides this. It will add a new delivery route for gas to the country. It also has the potential to be connected to multiple new gas sources, significantly increasing Serbia's energy diversity. Developing ways to connect to the planned Kirk Island project in Croatia could contribute to this effort as well. The United States has been a very vocal advocate of both Kirk Island, the Southern Corridor, and of the various regional interconnectors that have been proposed. And that's because we've learned from our own experience, sometimes painful experience, that energy diversity is important, and that without it, you cannot build a reliable, stable, predictable energy market. We've seen that as diversity increases, monopolies are broken, prices decline, price stability increases, and all of this benefits consumers in the long run. A more competitive market would also bring prices in line with global prices, which has already been discussed earlier today, and that in the long run would also bring long-term savings for consumers. So at this point, I've talked a bit about reforming energy policies. I've talked about increasing renewable energy and increasing the diversity of supplies and routes. But as one of my colleagues was fond of saying, all of this is on the supply side of the equation. We can't ignore the effect that energy demand and the policies related to it have on the overall energy landscape. Specifically, I'd like to talk for a moment about energy efficiency. Currently, Serbia consumes approximately 2.7 times more energy per unit of output than the average OECD country. This is definitely an area where a lot of progress can be made. Factories can be made more efficient. District heating systems, which we've discussed already today, could be modernized using new, efficient technologies, and they could begin switching to biomass or other renewable energies. The 37% of houses in Belgrade alone that have no insulation could be retrofitted and made more energy efficient. The electrical distribution system could be updated with modern equipment that reduces energy loss and smart metering that would help the network and consumers better understand their patterns of energy usage. These efforts would lead to a reduction in consumption, a decrease in demand, and a consequent decrease in prices, which would ultimately help Serbia to meet its 2020 goals without having to build any new power stations or without having to build a significantly larger number of new power stations or other large-scale infrastructure. The best part about energy efficiency projects, though, is that they tend to pay for themselves, and that's where they really benefit the consumer. By reducing wasted energy and consumption in factories, it lowers the price of production. By insulating homes, you reduce the heating bills or the cooling bills in the summer of residents living in those houses. You also decrease some of the demand on the district heating systems, allowing them to further improve their systems as well. Now, as I get to the end of my speech, some of you may be left wondering to yourselves, okay, there's a lot of ideas there. There are a lot of things that can be done. But where should Serbia really focus its efforts? The answer, as difficult as it may sound, is all of the above. I realize that resources are often limited, priorities need to be set, but each of these pieces contributes to the larger energy landscape. And creating the kind of stable, reliable, and affordable energy matrix that Serbia needs and that the Serbian people want will require progress on many different fronts. US officials often talk about an all-of-the-above strategy when they talk about energy policy. This is because energy policy is complex, as I said in the beginning. It involves trade-offs. And more often than not, no one solution will accomplish all of our goals. I believe this applies not only to the United States, but it applies to Serbia and the rest of the world as well. Tackling each one of these issues will bring different benefits, but all of them, in combination, will lead Serbia to where it wants to be. Of course, this won't be easy. The path is not short, but it is worthwhile. For the foreseeable future, energy policy will continue to be one of the main drivers of domestic policy. It will continue to play a very large role in all domestic politics. It will be a major component of economic policy throughout the world. More importantly, it's also impossible to have true economic security to build a robust, thriving, growing economy, which is exactly what the people of Serbia want to see, if you do not have energy security. Ultimately, that's why it's too dangerous for any country to rest on its laurels, to rely on one supplier regardless of who that supplier is, or to ignore ways to ignore ways to reduce energy consumption. I know that the Serbian government recognizes the important role that energy policy plays, and I've seen the efforts it has put into addressing the key issues. The United States will continue to look for ways to encourage and support these efforts because, after all, they contribute to our ultimate goal in Serbia, which is supporting a successful Serbia that is integrated into the European Union. Thank you very much.